Welcome to El Profe's Classroom. Classes in session. And tonight we're going to be talking about a series that really surprised me in how well it did and how well it came out. We're going to be talking, this is my first series review, and we're going to be talking about A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Um, this is obviously a return to Westeros, um, created by Ira Parker and George R. R. Martin, the author. Uh, this is basically, it's an adaptation of a series of novellas or short novels that Martin did in the world of Westeros, called The Tales of Dunk and Egg. And I don't wanna spoil too much, but this series is basically the first novella. It's 6 episodes. It's now on HBO. It's streaming on HBO. So watch it if you haven't watched it. And it's a short series compared to usual Game of Thrones fare. It's 30 to 40 minute episodes. And I think the thing that really surprised me is how well it took the the source material and transplanted it to the screen. And it makes sense because George R. R. Martin was an integral part of this team, which cannot be said about the Game of Thrones final few seasons. So if you have the author, everything seems to fall into place when it comes to the story. Um, so it stars Peter Claffey. He's a former pro rugby player, which is pretty cool. Uh, and he plays the not the main character, which is Dunk or Sir Duncan the Tall. Um, but I think he'd probably prefer to be called Dunk. And it also stars Dexter Sol Ansel as Egg, the Squire for Sir Dunk. It also stars Daniel Ings as Lionel Baratheon, the Laughing Storm, Sean Thomas as Raymond Fossaway, Danny Webb as Sir Alan of Pennytree, Henry Ashton, and Bertie Carvel as Prince Baylor. And this is a simple story. Dunk is was the squire to this Hedge Knight. And basically, Hedge Knights are one of are it's basically it's simple. They go around and they wherever somebody's willing to pay, and be they will do work as a knight for that house or that lord or whatever. Uh, so Dunk um, decides to follow the steps of Sir Arlen of Pennytree, and become a knight, a hedge knight. And he goes to this tourney to celebrate the birthday of the daughter of the house. Uh, and what makes this series special is, if you've seen Game of Thrones, you know that it has its funny moments, and Tyrion is a great character to have that, comedic relief. This series lets you know from the very beginning that it's not as serious as Game of Thrones, and it's not as serious as House of the Dragon. Why? Tend to those series are about world-ending things. The White Walkers, and a battle by the kings of the seven. The kings of the seven kingdoms and queens are warring. So it's all like big stuff. This series is about the common folk. It's about what they call the small folk in the series, and it gives you it has great comic relief. First of all, um, it does well to let you know from the beginning, this is not what you're used to. It's gonna be, it might be a little bit nasty, might be a little bit um, irreverent, but it will tell you a story about good people, chivalrous people. Uh, it's probably the only story about Westeros that you can find, um, like normal people doing great things. And I say normal in terms of the show, obviously. We know there's no difference between what they call small folk and the lords and ladies. But in terms of the world building, in terms of the story in that world, and it reminded me a lot about of what J.R.R. Tolkien did with the hobbits. They placed the hobbits as characters that are very small. So you have this, the most common of common people, somebody from Flea Bottom, an orphan from Flea Bottom, and he is trying to become a known knight. That is what makes this story great. Also, I think the casting was incredible. They did an incredible job picking Peter Claffey, but especially Dexter Soul Ansel as Egg. I don't know how old he is, the actor, but he is very young. And wow, what a performance! He is incredible in that role. There's also great casting when it comes. I mean, if there's one thing Game of Thrones knows how to do, and the whole Game of Thrones franchise is do great casting. And Daniel Ains as Lionel Baratheon, the Laughing Storm, fantastic. There's this series is lighter in tone. It's sort of like a buddy comedy thing. Uh, it has, it's about big dreams and how the small folk can find their place in this world that throws them around and treats them as cattle, basically. Uh, and there's a gag when it comes to the music of Game of Thrones, which is, I thought it was hilarious. And you'll find a lot of gags where they throw you off, but it's funny. It gives you the lighter tone that this world sorely needed. Because it's just so it can become too much when it comes to Game of Thrones. So if you haven't seen Night of the Seven Kingdoms, um, you should definitely check it out. Read the novella. I think the novellas are great, all three of them. I'm sure they're gonna be making the next three novellas as well, which are also really good stories. And I think it's a return to form for me for when it comes to the world of A Song of Ice and Fire. Um, you should give this a try. I get it. You might be saying like, "Oh my God, another Game of Thrones thing." Yes, but no, this is not it. This is if you pick the character you thought was the most noble, it would probably be Ned Stark. Imagine if this was just Ned Stark, but he was somebody like a normal person, and not a lord, not a not the owner of a big castle, the warden of the north. So check out Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Class dismissed.